I never thought the worst moment of my life would begin with the sound of a woman screaming at my daughter, or with the sight of her hand locked around my girl's wrist like she was arresting a criminal. And I definitely didn't expect that within 30 seconds, the HOA president would commit 2 crimes right as a sheriff's vehicle rolled into the parking lot behind her. That was the moment everything cracked open. But to understand how we got there, you need to know what happened before the scream, before the grip, before the lies that twisted our quiet neighborhood into a pressure cooker. I'm Ethan Cole, ex-firefighter, former military, the kind of guy who's lived enough chaos to appreciate silence when he finds it. After years bouncing between stations and short-term rentals, I wanted one thing: a place where my daughter Avery could grow up without looking over her shoulder. She's 16, sharp as a blade, and a cadet in the Sheriff's Community Investigator Program. She takes rules seriously, seriously enough that sometimes I forget she's still a kid. When we moved into Maple Ridge Estates, it felt like a long breath finally released. Clean sidewalks, trimmed hedges, a sparkling community pool, friendly enough neighbors. And yes, a strict HOA. Strict but manageable, the realtor said, smiling like she'd just sold me paradise. I believed her. Maybe I wanted to believe her. But patterns reveal themselves fast when you've trained your whole life to notice danger before it kicks down your door. The HOA board greeted us like a chorus line that had rehearsed their welcome speech 100 times. Behind all the smiles, though, something felt off. Their president, Karen Patterson, spoke with that sticky sweetness that coats your teeth, but her eyes, they scanned everything. My boots, Avery's posture, the scratches on our moving boxes. She didn't look at us like neighbors. She looked at us like inspections. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'd spent too many years around people who wore formality like a shield, but Karen's wasn't a shield. It was a weapon. The first signs came quietly, little taps on the door of our life. A polite email saying our mailbox height was off by 1.5 inches. A notice under the doormat claiming the edge of our lawn was too natural. A printed photo of my truck's back tire barely touching the painted line of my driveway. None of it serious, none of it dangerous, just invasive. Like someone whispering, "We're watching." Avery noticed things too, especially at the pool. "Dad," she said one afternoon, "she keeps circling the deep end. She watches everyone's badges like she's counting them." And she was right. Karen walked the pool deck like a security guard in a place that needed none. The first real friction came when Karen blocked us at the pool gate under the pretense of policy checks. Clipboard, stern face, fake authority. Avery didn't flinch. "Fairness exists for a reason too," she told her. It was calm, respectful, but firm. Karen was stunned. That was the moment she zeroed in on my daughter like Avery had committed the crime of not bowing her head. Then came the email. Formal, sharp-wrapped in legal-sounding nonsense. "Urgent unauthorized pool guests linked to your household. Avery, unauthorized guests." The girl practically logs her own shadow. She brought me her ID, her cadet attendance sheets, screenshots from the Community Gate app. Every timestamp matched, every entrance accounted for. We sent the HOA proof clear, organized, humble, but the reply came back a full day later. "We appreciate your clarification. However, the matter remains under review." No apology, no correction, just a cold refusal to admit they were wrong. I saw the confusion in Avery's eyes, then the hurt. "Why don't they just say they made a mistake?" she asked. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't make it worse. After that, something shifted. Every time she tapped in at the gate, a board member peeked at their phone. People angled their phones like they were texting, but I know what picture-taking posture looks like. Karen pulled Avery aside multiple times, questioning her badge, her attendance, her presence. My daughter stayed composed the way she'd been trained, steady voice, straight posture, no cracks. But she was 16. Pressure wasn't supposed to be waiting for her at a swimming pool. Then the rumor spread. I heard it from a neighbor who couldn't look me in the eye. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "People are saying your daughter forged her ID." The lie slithered through the neighborhood in hours. Kids pulled away from her. Parents stiffened when she walked by. She wasn't confronted, just quietly judged, like shame had become her shadow. One afternoon I found her sitting in my truck, shoulders tight, badge half unclipped, a single tear sliding down her cheek before she wiped it away too fast. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. That moment cut deeper than any injury I'd ever treated. She wasn't crying because people believed the rumor. She was crying because she'd followed every rule, every single one, and still ended up the target. That's the kind of pain that leaves a mark. The next morning we got a violation notice, $250 for pool tranquility disruptions. Tranquility. As if my kid splashing her feet was some kind of federal offense. It listed fake infractions, unauthorized diving, excessive splashing, disruption of pool atmosphere. Avery barely makes ripples when she swims. I marched to the HOA office. The room smelled like cheap perfume and burnt coffee. Karen sat behind the desk like she was presiding over a courtroom. I placed the notice in front of her. "This is fabricated," I said. She barely skimmed it. "Multiple reports," she replied, smiling that sharp, sugary smile. "Rules exist for a reason." "There were no reports," I shot back. "You know that." Her smile widened. "Your daughter thinks she's special," she murmured. "Here she follows my rules." I felt my fists start to curl. Years of service military firefighting taught me how to control anger. But this woman wanted a reaction. She wanted a scene. So I walked out. But the weight in my chest that day told me something. This wasn't petty HOA nonsense anymore. This was targeted harassment. For a moment, one short, weak moment, I wondered if I should just let it go. Stop fighting. Move on. Keep the peace. What if I was overreacting? What if I made things worse for Avery? I remember standing at the kitchen window watching the streetlights flicker, thinking maybe the smartest option was surrender. Maybe the fight wasn't worth the cost. But then I remembered my daughter's voice, tight, shaking but strong, saying, "Why are they doing this?" And something in me hardened. I wouldn't let her face a world where bullies win just because they speak louder. That's when everything escalated. A sunny afternoon. Avery walked through the pool gate, barely had time to set down her towel before Karen intercepted her like a linebacker. "You are no longer allowed in this pool," she announced loud enough for every parent and child to hear. Avery didn't back down. "That's not in the bylaws," she said calmly. "Suspension requires written notice and a board vote." Karen stepped closer, lips tight. "Don't quote policy at me." Then she reached out and grabbed Avery's wrist hard. I saw my daughter's breath hitch, just a flicker of fear breaking through her calm. She tried to pull back. "Let go," she said. "You are not allowed to touch me." That's when I stepped inside the gate. I didn't yell. I didn't run. I just walked slow, steady, controlled until my shadow fell between them. "Karen," I said, voice low enough to make her finally freeze. "You're committing assault." She didn't release Avery immediately. "She's banned," she snapped. "I have authority here." "No," I said. "You don't." And right then behind us came the crunch of gravel, the sheriff's vehicle pulling in. The timing couldn't have been scripted better. Karen's hand dropped. Sheriff Wallace stepped out of the cruiser's sunglasses, reflecting the entire scene. The clustered families. Avery rubbing her wrist, Karen twisting her face into an expression she hoped looked innocent. He walked over, calm, composed, all authority. "Cadet," he said to Avery, "you all right?" Karen jumped in. "Officer, I'm glad you're here. This girl has been causing—" "Ma'am," he cut in, never even glancing at her. "I wasn't talking to you." If silence could cheer, the whole pool deck would have erupted. Avery explained exactly what happened. Her voice didn't shake once. When she lifted her wrist, the red marks were unmistakable. Sheriff Wallace turned to Karen. "Is that true?" She let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, come on. I was just getting her attention. These kids exaggerate. You have no right to put your hands on anyone," he said. "Especially a minor." "I'm the HOA president," she snapped. "And I," he replied, "am the sheriff of this county." That was the moment she realized she'd lost. Witnesses stepped forward. Parents. The lifeguard. Even a man who'd been pretending to scroll on his phone but had caught part of the scene on video. Statements were taken. Photos. Logs. The entire situation unraveling like thread pulled from a cheap sweater. At the emergency HOA meeting, the room was full, people standing, sitting, leaning against walls. I laid out evidence. Avery spoke with a calm strength that made the board members shift uncomfortably in their seats. And then Sheriff Wallace stepped in with a folder under his arm. After reviewing statements and evidence, he said, My office is recommending misdemeanor assault and harassment charges against Karen Patterson." The gasp from the crowd was almost physical. Karen spun toward the board. "Say something. Tell him." But the board members looked relieved, like they'd been waiting for someone else to strike the match. A vote was called. Every hand went up, every single one. Karen Patterson was removed as HOA president on the spot. She screamed as deputies guided her out, something about regret, vengeance, being ungrateful, but no one moved to stop her. No one defended her. No one even looked her in the eye. The moment the door closed behind her, the room finally exhaled. And that's where the story ends, not with celebration, not with community praise, not with hugs or applause. It ends with a door shutting on someone who thought power made her untouchable. It didn't, because here's the truth worth holding on to. Bullies collapse the moment someone finally stands their ground.